Dragonair is easily my favourite of the middle evolution Soda legendaries. Not only is its design great, it's pretty effective in good tier GCNU. Dragonair is a rather bizarre case in GSCNU. On one hand, its stats are very mediocre, and it lacks a good stab attack, but on the other, it has an amazing move pool and numerous useful resistances. Dragonair's prowess mostly make up for its cons, and it managed to establish a niche in modern GSCNU. As the sole legal dragon type in GSCNU, Dragonair is blessed with resistances to water, fire, and electric, which are all common attacking types in the metagame. This makes Dragonair a solid switch into some common Pokemon, such as Hidden Power Electric Octillery, Magmar, and Magnemite. Dragonair never uses this dragon typing for offensive purposes, because the strongest stab move is Hidden Power Dragon off of 70 base special attack. Yeah, no. Instead, Dragonair relies on its excellent coverage move pool, which it uses to pose a surprisingly dangerous offensive threat. Dragonair learns all of Fire Blast, Thunder, Ice Beam, and even Surf, which lets it hit many common Pokemon super effectively. Thunder hits flying types like Xatu and water types like Octillery. Ice Beam hits flying types and retains coverage on ground and grass types. Fire Blast hits Pineco, grass types, and Magnemite. And finally, Surf hits ground and rock types the hardest. Thunder, Ice Beam, and Fire Blast is a great combination on offensive teams, since nothing in the tier resists it. Without using especially bulky Pokemon not weak to any of its coverage moves, like Wigglytuff or Dunsparce, Dragonair can be very annoying to deal with. It gets entry on the common Hidden Power Electric Octillery, and not much can switch into it after that. What makes Dragonair even more difficult to handle is its access to Thunder Wave, which lets it cripple Pokemon that wouldn't take much damage from its attacks. Like Statler. Thunder Wave is incredibly useful support for setup sweepers, like Kingler, Statler, and Primeape, and it vastly improves Dragonair's offensive sets. Finally, Dragonair is one of the very few Pokemon with access to both Light Screen and Reflect, which further support the aforementioned setup sweepers. Dragonair is a staple on teams that stack multiple setup sweepers and baton pass teams, checking problematic Pokemon like Magmar while providing screens and paralysis support. Dragonair works well as a lead, threatening Pineco lead with Fire Blast and other common leads like Persian with Thunder Wave. If used in the late slot, Miracle Berry is advisable due to the prominence of sleep leads like the aforementioned Persian and Rapidash. Dragonair's moveset is incredibly flexible since it only really needs Thunder Wave, and is free to choose any of Screens or any of its coverage moves after that. Dragonair is most common on setup spam and baton pass teams, but it can also be used on standard offensive teams as a mixed attacking paralysis spreader. Regarding Dragonair's history throughout GSCNU's various iterations, it's another one of those Pokemon that was viable, but not noticed until the modern metagame. In the Mr. Mime metagame, it could work as a Pikachu answer, and in the Raichu metagame a Raichu answer, but it wasn't explored enough. It just kind of existed, being one of those theoretically viable CRT mons. It wasn't until the modern metagame rolled around when people started actually exploring Dragonair. Around September of 2020, Dragonair began being used on Growth Pass and Baton Pass teams since it learned Screens and Thunder Wave. Not long after that, mixed attacking sets were being explored. That is actually pretty much the history of Dragonair in GSCNU, since it hasn't really evolved at all in the past 2 years. When first discovered, it was a decent B-tier mon, and that is where it's stayed since. While Dragonair is decent, there are a number of factors from hold it back from stardom. As mentioned earlier, its stats are pretty poor all around. If Dragonair doesn't hit something super effectively with its coverage, then the opposing Pokemon most likely has an easy time against it, especially if it's using Rest Talk. Dragonair really relies on super effective hits to deal damage because of its lacking stab moves and meager special attack. Dragonair is also not particularly bulky or fast, which further impedes its ability to switch in and actually set up screens. It lacks the longevity to be a reliable screen setter long term. Dragonair also suffers from 4 move slot syndrome because there is a lot of moves this thing wants to pick, between Thunder, Fire Blast, Light Screen, Reflect, Ice Beam and Surf, but it can only choose 3 since it needs Thunder Wave.